Welcome to our public meeting on the budget, and at this point, the council is really happy that you could all be here, and I want to welcome everybody. We've had, this will be our third and final budget meeting with public input, and we really appreciate that. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug with budget, who's going to introduce the next, or the beginning of our session here.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Doug Gerber, Director of Administrative and Financial Services. We are now at our third in a series of meetings that are designed with a couple of objectives in mind. First, we want to try to clarify any budget questions or issues that are lingering out there with the public. And first and foremost, really, we want to make some budget issues known and help citizens address council and identify issues as the council works towards establishment of the 2015 budget. So tonight, we will have our budget manager, Nikki Lee, give a budget overview presentation for the audience. And then after that, there'll be an opportunity for some public comment and input. And then we'll come back to council for their final wrap-up comments. So unless there's any questions at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Nikki Lee, who is our budget manager.
Thank you. Nikki.
Again, I'm Nikki. I'm the budget manager with the City of Topeka, and sorry for those of you who have seen this presentation a couple of times. But really, I'm going to walk you through a presentation, overview of the budget in general, and then get a little bit into the 2015 budget process. But before we begin, I want to point out a few online resources that are here for the public. If you go to the City of Topeka website, we've made a few really quick and easy links for you to get to some city budget information. Here we have a Where's the Money tab. And if you click on this, it brings up a few links. One under Where's the Money is a few links to some financial reports that are talking about our current year. So if you click on this financial reports button, you can get to monthly reports and quarterly reports that are really focusing on the 2014 year. So as I'm talking, I'm going to be talking a lot about the 2015 budget year, but you might be interested in what's going on in our current year as well, or even some prior years. So if you go here, you can click on some monthly reports and quarterly reports that really talk about all of our funds and how all of our funds are doing. And these are new and improved documents. I think they're pretty user-friendly, so in your free time, feel free to link out to these and see if you've got any questions on those. In addition, we have a whole page dedicated to the development of the 2015 budget. So if you go to the budget link here, you can have my contact information. If any of you need to email me or call me with any questions, feel free to anytime. As well, we're going to be posting documents about the 2015 budget as we go throughout the summer. So you'll see here we've got a link for announcements, presentations, documents, calendar, and I'll touch on all these in the budget presentation, but just wanted you all to know this was out here. Also, there's information for our previous budgets, so the 2014 budget, and in addition, all of our budgets going back to 2005. So if you've got any questions going back for a number of years, it's all out here for you. And definitely, if you're ever looking for something and aren't finding what you're looking for, then give me a call or shoot me an email and I'll get you that information. So let's begin here with an overview of the Topeka budget. First of all, what is a budget? This is a very good place to start. The City Council is required in Kansas to adopt a budget every year for every fiscal year. Every fiscal year is January through December, and the budget must be delivered to the county by August 25th. So that's a really important, I think, statement to make to the public, because a lot of people wonder why we talk about the budget as early as we do. Why do we talk all summer? Sometimes we start back in February. And the reason for that is that we're backing into an August date that we have to have our next year's budget turned into the county. So really the budget, in a very simplistic manner, the budget is a plan of all of your revenues, what revenues you're going to bring in and how you're going to spend that money. But it's really more than just dollars. It's also what we consider a policy document. So the budget is really the council's way of translating what they care about in the city, because whatever they care about, that's where they're going to be directing their resources, which is really translated into the budget. So we just really like to emphasize that it's really more important than just a financial document. It's also a planning tool as we go into that next year. Some key definitions. Revenues, that's the source of income for the city. So in our general fund, the city's main sources of income or revenues would be our taxes, so our property tax, our sales tax, those are our biggest sources. But also we have revenues that are specific to some of our special funds. So for example, some of our fees that go into our utility funds, what you pay for your water, what you pay for your stormwater and wastewater, Those are all sources of revenues that we use for pretty specific purposes. And expenditures, that's just how are we spending our money. In addition to fund, we have multiple funds in the city. We have over 30 special funds for different reasons. And really, these are all separate checking accounts. So we have to not only adopt a budget for the general fund, but for all of our separate funds, we have different sets of revenues and expenditures, and they all have some pretty specific reasons for what we need to spend that money on. So first, talking a little bit about the general fund. A lot of the reason we talk a lot about the general fund is it is the majority of our budget, and it's also primarily supported by your property taxes or the mill levy, so it's a very important source to talk about. Also, it supports most of the general services through the city. So for example, public safety, your police and your fire, that's 74% of our general fund budget, so a very important part of the budget. Infrastructure, that would be our operations for our public works department that are in the general fund, in addition to some support that we pay towards supporting cemeteries in the city. We have recreation and leisure, which this would include the zoo. This would include some payments we have for supporting some leisure activities such as TPAC, and also the payment that we make towards Shawnee County for support of the Parks and Recreation Department. Courts and legal, that would be primarily municipal courts and legal department. Internal services, that's really to support our financial services department, our human resources, so any of our services internally that we need to operate day to day. Community development, that includes planning, our housing and neighborhood development department, and also we do designate some of our funds for social service grants and other grants out for the community. That's all in our community development. And finally, city governments, that would be the city council, the mayor's office, and also the executive department. And again, just to highlight, the general fund makes up about 42% of the city of Topeka's total budget. So those are some overviews of the budget in general. Now we want to get into a little bit more of how the city's doing financially today. The short story at the end of 2013 is that we ended in a very good place. We were able to add more to the fund balance than we had planned. A couple of reasons for that. One reason is that revenues came in better than we'd projected. So in 2013, the economy was starting to bounce back a little bit, still not as great as it was before the recession, but definitely sales tax was coming in a little bit better than we'd budgeted. So good news for the city of Topeka. And also on the expenditure side, we did some very good expenditure management within the city, constantly looking for efficiencies and ways to better spend money. So that resulted in some savings there, which ended up with a very good financial situation for the end of the year in 2013. A little bit more about some of our special funds here. We do have quite a few special revenue funds, and these are funds that really are set up for very, very specific purposes. For example, the Downtown Business Improvement District, this is a fund where downtown businesses contribute to this fund, and then the money from that fund is used to support those businesses for things like if they want extra snow removal during snow, if they want to do any kind of extra cleaning, anything like that, and that's paid for out of this fund. Also, one of the bigger funds of a special revenue fund would be the citywide half-cent sales tax. And when you all see the proposed budget, which will be released in about a week, there will be separate pages for every single fund that we budget in the city of Topeka. So anything you want more information on, you will definitely be able to find that. The debt service fund, this is a very important fund to us. This makes up about 10% of our total budget. And this is the fund that we pay any of our principal and interest payments out of for any of our previous capital projects. This is a very important fund, not only to look at your current year, but your out years, because when we bond for some of our major projects, we're looking sometimes 10, 15, and 20 years out to the future. So it's really important on this fund that we're always looking at our 20-year forecast, because we're paying for things today that we're going to be paying for quite a few years. Enterprise funds, these would be mostly our utility funds, and really an enterprise fund operates like a business. So the only people that pay into these funds are the people that use the services. For example, the water fund, if you're using our water, you're paying into the fund, and then the fund is paying out for expenditures associated with the water department. Wastewater would be in this pot of money, our stormwater, our public parking, and these ones together make up 31% of our total budget. So these are a very important part of our conversation as well. Internal service funds, these are funds that we have within the city of Topeka that we pretty much charge our own departments different fees to support programs within our own city that support our own departments. So for example, our fleet services, all the departments pay in towards our fleet services fund to help support their vehicles. Information technology, we have the same kind of fund, and also facilities is a somewhat new fund That's a fund that supports pretty much operations and maintenance on a lot of our city buildings. And then finally, capital project funds. These are funds that really pay for any major equipment purchases and construction projects. So for the most part, these aren't ongoing expenditures. These are one-time large expenditures that would hit a fund like this. So just a little bit more about where we've been, not only in the city of Topeka, but in the whole country. Of course, we're coming back from a great recession, and just to put a little bit into perspective, across the country there was $11.2 trillion in market losses, which is very, very significant. Consumer confidence dropped from 95.2 to 25.3. And the reason this is important to the city of Topeka is this translates into our sales tax dollars. So if you're less confident as a consumer and you're purchasing less, that means that we're receiving less revenue from sales tax. So this is a very important measure that we look to really measure the fiscal health of the city. In Topeka, unemployment peaked at 7.9% in 2010, and then in 2004 it's coming down to 6.2%, or 2014 down to 6.2%. What this is really showing is that it's getting better here in Topeka, but still not quite back to where it was. And really that's reflected in the City Council's proposed budget. We're having a very modest revenue growth where we know we're doing a little bit better than in the previous years, but still not as great as we were before. And that's also expressed, I think, in people's personal budgets and personal incomes. The median household income in 2008 was about $52,000. It dropped down to in 2011, and then in 2012 it's starting to come back a little bit, but again, still not back to where it was in 2008. So in the city of Topeka, the recession was really important to us because it impacts all of our major revenue sources, which are really dependent on the economy. Our property tax, which is our mill levy, that's based on the value of homes. So of course, if everybody's home value is going down, then you're assessed less property tax, which translates to less revenues for the city. Sales tax, as I explained before, is really contingent on consumer spending. So if people are spending less, the city is getting less revenues as well. And also franchise fees. What these are fees that we charge the utilities to basically exist in our right-of-ways. And it's a contingent on the revenues that they get. So if people are spending less on their utilities, like their electricity and their gas, and conserving more, then less revenue also comes into the city. So where are we today in 2014? We are constantly focusing on building fiscal sustainability, not only in the current year, but any decision we're making, we're looking at a 5-year forecast to see what's that decision today, both on the revenue and expenditure side, going to do to us in all of the out years. We have an ongoing expenditure management, and really what that means to you all is that we're not just thinking about the budget during budget season. Constantly throughout the year, we're looking for efficiencies. We're making sure we're spending money in the best way, and being the best stewards of our resources. Also, we have implementing a formal revenue projection process for our major revenues. So we're really trying to look at our sales tax, our property tax in a much more finite way to project out our current year and the out years. And also overall, our debt burden in the city is decreasing, so that's good news, and translates in savings really in all of our different funds. So some important things to talk about as we're preparing for the 2015 budget is, as I talked about before, we are projecting a little bit of growth in our revenues, but still a pretty slow, conservative growth. We have a lot of rising expenditures that really are our fixed costs in our budget. So as we started to begin even building the budget, there are a lot of costs that we knew were going up, and some of which we had no control over. For example, just like in your own budgets, fuel costs, asphalt, costs of different commodities, electricity and gas, insurance. A lot of those items we're really having to pay more going into the year, and we really don't have any control about that and need to find a way to absorb those increases. And also employee costs. This would be the cost of our employees, not only full-time salaries, but also benefits, a very important cost that we need to project for the 15 year. So in order to absorb all of these increases in our expenditures, there will be some, I would say, some reallocation of dollars as part of the 15 council's budget that really sets the priority for the council and puts the dollars in the places that are most important to us. And really the reason is that we're wanting to address a structural imbalance. The council is going to be presenting a balanced budget. No longer will we be spending more than we make. One thing we want to always do every year and in the 5-year forecast is make sure that we've got a structurally balanced budget. Before the budget process really kicks off, we really like to talk to the council about the council's budget priorities. And so these have been set recently by the city council. And just in alphabetical order, these councils that have been set forth are developing neighborhoods, establishing fiscal sustainability, investing in infrastructure, and public safety. So when we're building the 2015 budget and the council's proposing the budget, these are all really the priority areas that we want to speak to, and we believe these are really reflective of the public's priorities as well. In addition, the organization, so the City of Topeka as staff, we have our own priorities that we like to speak to. We're constantly focusing on customer service and making sure that you, the public, as our customers, are being serviced in the best way. We're constantly focusing on fiscal health, organizational excellence, maintaining a safe and secure community, taking care of our physical assets or our infrastructure, and focusing on our thriving and livable neighborhoods. This is also available on our website, but just wanted to remind everybody of really what's next in the budget process. So today is the last of the official public engagement events, but certainly any of the other budget committee meetings are open to the public. The council is going to start meeting in mid-June, so June 14th, and these will all be located at the Law Enforcement Center. All of these times and everything is on our website, so if you can't remember today, you can just go to the website that I showed you earlier for all of these dates. So really the goal will be that we'll finalize the budget, make any important decisions by mid-July, and then there will be an official adoption in August. As I said before, the county requires that we deliver a budget by August 25th, so really all this is building up to that date. That concludes my presentation, so now we want to present you all with a way that you can tell us what your 2015 budget priorities are going to be. This is an opportunity for those of you that are watching on TV or watching online. People can participate from their home, and there's a link to this from the city's budget website. And actually, as of now, we've already received 750 responses and more than that, so we definitely are having a lot of people participating in this. And really what we'd like you to do is tell us, of these different choices here, what would be your top 3 budget priorities? You can vote for up to 3 items, and we feel that each of these items speak to the council budget priorities. So for example, bikeways, that speaks to infrastructure. Code enforcement, this would be any of our programs that talk about the maintenance of our property codes related to houses, relating to weeds, related to unsafe structures. Community policing, this would be a collaboration between the police department and the community to really focus on targeted neighborhood and targeted resources for our policing efforts. Street maintenance, sidewalks, snow removal, of course, all infrastructure. Topeka Zoo definitely speaks to our living. And then our water main replacement, another infrastructure item that we feel is a very important topic. So if all of you would like to participate in the audience, or it'll be online for a couple of weeks, you can go home and do it later. You can either text your vote, and their address is listed here, 22333 would be who you'd send it to the to. You can tweet your vote, and then this tells you all of the different keywords that you'd need to tweet for your vote to count. And then probably the easiest way, if you have access to a computer or a smartphone, or we've got some iPads and computers floating around today if you'd like to borrow one, would be you can go to pollev.com/City of Topeka, and you can actually just hit the buttons on the screen up to 3 times. So hopefully everybody can use one of those options, or certainly even come up to one of us after the meeting and tell us what your votes would be. So this is a live results of the votes as they're going on right now. But in addition to that, as I said, we already before this meeting received 750 votes. So this is the results so far, which you can see they're pretty evenly spaced. So far, street maintenance is in the lead. Looks like code enforcement is right underneath. So if you want to support one of these or even try to bring this in a different direction, then definitely get online and cast your vote right now. And once all of the votes are in, we'll have a tabulation of all of the votes together in one place for you all to see. Any questions for me?
Yes, Councilwoman Ortiz.
I have Obama seats. I can see you very, very well behind the screen there, so I apologize. Is there a option for other on this?
The mayor asked the same question. We didn't actually, there's no literal option for an other button, but we definitely recommend that if people have an other choice, to contact their council member or contact our office, and we'll certainly track that as part of the results.
Can we get a other button on there? Is it too late?
can consult about that.
Mr. City Manager, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not sure. The quick word is it would cause some changes in it, so we'll talk about it, and if we can do it, we will.
Okay, so I'm to let my constituents know, because I do see another that I know that they have been talking to me about that's not in one of these categories. So I'm to let them know to contact the city manager's office or myself.
I have more. We've been asking on social media if anybody has anything we didn't mention to let us know on social media, and I was gonna compile all of those and get them to you. We have had many.
Susie,
other
a lot of my, if I may,
Absolutely.
I have a lot of older constituents that don't have social media. They don't use they probably won't even use this. But if they did, I want to give them the options that are available to them. So am I to have them call the city manager's office? Because I'm not going to have them call me right now. I'm kind of busy. So is that what you want, or to call you, since we're not going to get another button on here?
We can put in other. The problem is that it changes, like, everybody who's voted so far hasn't had another. So that's the only hesitancy. We can make a new one and have another one.
Okay, well, I'll direct them to the city manager. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Harmon.
Thank you. I think the online poll is a great idea, but this is not a scientific poll, is it? In other words, it's possible to vote more than once.
Yep. Well, sorry. It's actually written so that if you're from a certain IP address, you can only vote 3 times. Sorry, I was answering, you can vote for up to 3 from any device that you have, but it is controlled that from each device, you can only vote up to 3 times. But that is an important distinction, is that it's not a scientific poll.
So a person could conceivably vote 9 times. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Manspeaker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I realize that it's not scientific, but I don't think that the budget process is scientific. I think that what we're attempting to accomplish is folks can throw out ideas. I think that effort, this is the first time we've ever done anything like this, has been valiant. And I don't want to be one naysaying it. I'm hopeful. It looks like the things that I'm interested in becoming priorities are staying on the top in the leader race. So I would just encourage citizens to continue to contact however works best for them, and let us know what they think priorities should be. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Harmon.
I was not criticizing the poll. I think it's a great idea. It's a great tool to engage the public, and I wasn't criticizing it. I just wanted to clarify from my own mind whether or not it was scientific. But there still is value to it, but I certainly wasn't criticizing it. Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments from the council? Well, I want to thank everybody for the effort that you put into this, Susie, and the budget team and the city manager, because I think it's been a really good thing that we have initiated, and getting some feedback. Not only the public is welcome to come here, but also doing it online if they can. And as always in the budget process, they can contact us individually, or they can call the budget office. And I think that's what we would encourage people to do is, if they have something that they see as a priority that wasn't listed here, to call the budget office and say, my priority would be this. And so I would certainly encourage people who are listening, if they don't see what they want up there, to just contact the budget officer or their council person. I'd certainly want to hear from them. I have heard from them, and as I discussed earlier today, I discussed some of the things that people had said to me, but they were on the poll anyway. But I did have some constituents who talked about sidewalks and looking for ways to further do sidewalks, as well as code enforcement. And then the thing that isn't on there was some concerns about Parks and Rec Department and keeping Abbott Center open. And I think it's good for us to share that, and that's why I'm sharing that, because I had some constituents who weren't able to be here, and so I shared that. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and start with the public comment. I have the list, and we do have a podium over here with a microphone. So the first person is Stephanie Mott. It's over on this side. Yes.
Give it to the judge to pass out. You should have helped her.
Okay, thank you.
That's just rude.
Thank you.
He did. It goes by bill.
Deputy Mayor and council members, and Budget Committee members and city staff, thank you for the opportunity for me to talk today. I want to talk about the Human Relations Commission Department. I want to make a very clear point first that I am not speaking to you as a Human Relations Commissioner, but rather as a citizen and as a board member of the Equality Kansas. And my views here are not necessarily representative of the Human Relations Commission of the city. The first thing that I have is a handout about the Kansas Human Rights Commission. And I want to point out that it talks in the third full paragraph about the reduction in inventory of open cases from 2,768 in 1995 to 615 in the fiscal year, at the end of fiscal year 2007. That with an average open cases processing time of 9 months. And that's really the only thing I wanted to make a point of out of that document. From the Capital Journal article from when the Human Relations Commission Department was defunded in 2010, the information shows at that time that in June 30th of 2009, KHRC had 799 open cases. And it shows also then, as of May 31st of 2010, they had 990 open cases. I'll point out that the Kansas Human Rights Commission website hasn't got updated numbers, and I was not able to find anything more updated. But I'm not sure why they haven't updated it. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are looking at a waiting time of about a year before if somebody takes something to the Kansas Human Rights Commission, before there can be any investigation or disposition even begins that process. So we know when we had the Kansas Human Relations Department, when we had quasi-judicial and investigative powers for the Human Relations Commission, that we could have pretty much instant response when somebody came with a concern. And this is concerns about public housing as well as employment and public accommodations. I'm going to point out then the next two sheets are sheets, page 41. This is from the 2014 Lawrence budget, Lawrence, Kansas budget. And if you notice on the line this 1085, the Human Relations Commission budget in Lawrence was in 2012 $65.94. Their 2014 budget was $9,730. And then on the other page, page 70, this is the page regarding the Human Relations Commission. It has those same numbers regarding their budget. Under organizational chart, it shows the city attorney, supervising city prosecutor, and then city prosecutor with a .25 beside it. Meaning basically that the city of Lawrence is operating on a budget less than $10,000 and has, as far as manpower from the city attorney's office, approximately a quarter of a full-time equivalent. We can fund a Human Relations Department for, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000, not the $200,000 that it was when we defunded it. And this is something that affects many populations in the city, not just the LGBT population, and it would open the door for the possibility for the city council to make a citywide LGBT anti-discrimination ordinance, which I think that the city needs to do as we move into being recognized as a progressive city moving into the 21st century. And I did say that correctly, the 21st century. But this also affects the African American community and the Hispanic community and communities that are historically marginalized. And I can tell you right now that in the city of Topeka, in the state of Kansas, and across the country, that Hispanic people, African American people, Native American people are twice as likely to live in poverty. I don't have any to bring right now, but I will be emailing some to you all to show you that there are studies being shown that persons of color who are seeking housing are shown fewer opportunities. They don't get to see the same number of houses that people, that Caucasian people have the opportunity to see. There's a very real need here for a very large portion of our population here in Topeka for us to have a responsive local human relations commission. And I hope that you will consider making that one of your budget priorities. Thank you. I would stand for any questions. I'm going to have to leave. I volunteer at the jail on Wednesday night, so I'm going to be leaving right after I get done here.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any, but thank you very much for your comments for us.
Thank you. I'll be following up with some of this stuff too. Thank you.
Our next speaker is J.R. Campbell.
I'm J.R. Campbell. I live at 1213 Southeast 43rd Terrace. I've been here since 1978. I've lived in the city of Topeka since June the 8th, 1966. Some of you know what that date means. I came here to work for the state of Kansas, Kansas Department of Transportation. I spent 42 years with them, retiring in 2007. I worked with 627 cities and 105 counties. We worked on projects that were mostly road and bridge related. As far as the budget goes, I keep seeing numbers change up there. That must be an interactive thing that results. And I don't know where you're gonna run out of the room or not. The one thing I wanna speak about when it comes to budget. Yes, I do have a good retirement. But no, I have not had a COLA in my state retirement since I retired. I've had a very modest Social Security adjustments as the years come by. And I know there are lots of people in this city that are in the same boat. So when you start looking at sales tax, I know what type of situations people are in with that. But you start looking at property taxes, other taxes, when our income does not go up, it does not match what is required. And that's what the city is facing today, is trying to match those points. I'm glad to hear that there were 750, I believe you said, Nikki, that have responded, because there's too many people that belong to the silent majority. They'll either come to a meeting and not speak, or not even come to a meeting. So I would challenge anyone to do that. Again, thank you for my chance to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get the name right. I think it's Frank, is it George? Hogue, I'm sorry.
How did you get that?
Well, some of the folks who had signed up did not want to speak. They were no, and I apologize
That's
for
all right.
not reading the name correctly.
I don't care. I'm Frank Hogue, and my concerns are with the neighborhoods. I'm with the Chesney Park neighborhood, and I've been active in trying to improve the neighborhood for the last 20 years. And I'll tell you, it is extremely frustrating to work with the city in this kind of a situation. I look at the list of all of the things up there. Bikeways, 56 people. Let me give you a clue. Poor people don't vote. They don't vote on this kind of stuff, you know. And you probably will not see that recognized in any of their desires. They're out there trying to find a job. They're trying to find a place to live. They're finding something to eat. They're finding something to keep their kids busy. They've got all kinds of problems that most of us sitting in here do not have. And there's nothing that I've heard discussed tonight that really that's that addresses that issue of poverty. I didn't know anything about poverty till I started working in the neighborhood, and I tell you, it's just an eye-opener. There are people out there that are willing to do things if they're given a chance. Why, if we have the candy company come here, did we make any effort or take any time to think about having them required to put in, to hire some low-income people? Was that part of their movement? No. Is this like the comment from nobody they look at you with that?
No, I'm not sure how to answer that question. I don't think that there was anything in an agreement to require hiring practices.
That's fine. Why not? I guess my question is why not? We are operating, this city operates in stuff that didn't work 20 years ago, and we still haven't changed the things. There are major changes that need to be made. I had a lady that had 4 kids. She's pregnant. Her husband is in the hospital, and he probably has died now. But 2 of her kids have the same condition that she does, or that he did, their father. They're going to die at a young age. What do we have to offer those kind of people? This lady doesn't have any money. She doesn't know where to live. She doesn't have, I don't know what she's doing for food. How does this city deal with people problems? I don't see any people problems really. Maybe a property code. Property code is an issue that we've been pretty much working on. I feel very sorry for Captain Scott for the bomb that was handed to him to try to bring the neighborhoods around. But the neighborhoods need to be brought into the situation. You need to get rid of some of these things that are being done. Is it $8 million we're gonna put downtown, in the downtown area? God, just think what that would have done for the neighborhoods. Just think. And the other thing is that we don't come up with any ideas in working with the city. It's either I'll refer you to somebody, we don't do that, or we have, our two departments will offer something, only they're under different kinds of situations. You know, you can't work out anything like that. Is there any possibility that we could get some of that money? I noticed that it was in the general fund, and I assume that that's not earmarked. Am I correct, that general fund money? Well, okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I asked a question. Okay, some of that money ought to be used to develop some programs for handicapped people, and we ought to, the other thing is that I know it's a terrible thing to talk about increasing taxes, but is there any reason why the people that live outside of Topeka can't pay an income tax for working in the city? We goof away all that money. You know, what the heck's going on here? Does anybody ever think beyond their office space and how they can pull things together and work it together? That's what the neighborhoods are trying to do. We're having one heck of a time because we run into all kinds of errors and problems. Is there any way any money can be used to look at the administrative structure and how the city was organized? And help the city reorganize that, so if we want to get money for potholes, we know exactly who to go to. We do now, but I'm not sure how far that goes, because I'm not sure how far that goes. But there ought to be some kind of organizational structure where I can look at this, and if I don't get anything out of Sylvia, I know who to go to right up the line. But it's not. I saw an organizational chart that you had that was, I couldn't believe it. I don't know how it functions, but it would be nice if you would take a look at some of those things. Also, in your budget, would you please look at something that's going to deal with helping people and helping them gain some kind of structure in the city? We have a big trouble there, big problem. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I don't know if Councilwoman Hiller wants to answer any of that, but I know there is a committee that looks at grant funding for some of the issues that you're talking about, and they do distribute funds to folks that are in need.
Okay, let me give you that. That's a wonderful thing, but you know, it will take 5 years before we ever get the money.
Councilwoman
So if you
Hiller?
want me to answer, we do
contribute about $1 million a year out of a couple different sources through the city to nonprofit, community-based helping agencies that do a variety of things, including, what was it? I'm forgetting my numbers, but about 500,000 that's general fund and CDBG. And in the discussions, I serve on the Economic and Community Development Committee, and we did exactly what you're suggesting in general with those funds in terms of reviewing the process that they were ranked and distributed to make sure that they were going the best possible places. And in that process, people said on more than one occasion that apparently a lot of cities don't do it at all. And so our tradition of supporting community-based agencies to help people is a strong one.
Let me give you another example. You just brought that up. This group here has money to help people improve their property. Now, let's take the typical person in the poor neighborhood. He doesn't have a job. He lost his job. He's living in a house that he's paying rent and probably owes the landlord $1,000. And and he owes him about $1,000, and he's hanging on by his toenails or fingernails, trying to stay in that property. His kids are beginning to wander out. What else? He's going to lose his job. He already lost his job, so he doesn't have any money. Now, here's the way it works. He goes into H&D, for instance, and he says, I want to get, I need some help. And you guys, so the H&D says, okay, do you owe any taxes? Well, yes, I do. Well, anybody that's low income and poor and doesn't have a job is going to have no money to pay his taxes. He doesn't have money to pay his food. He doesn't have any money to take care of his kids. Okay, then the question is, we'll work out a plan for you to pay a certain amount of money towards paying off your bills against your property. If I don't have a job, how the heck am I supposed to pay part of my income to something like that? Those are the kind of problems the neighborhoods are facing that the city doesn't seem to understand. There's poverty out there. You need to look at some poverty information. The school district, 501 school district, had a book that they put out on poverty and how it affects people. I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't have the name of it, but I'll get you the name if you'd like to have that book that does an excellent explanation of how poverty affects people and how they function with that kind of, within that kind of structure. I'll be glad to do that if you are interested in it. But people need work.
Thank you for your comments. Councilman Manspeaker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hogue, for your comments. One thing that I would point out, and well, I guess the first thing I would say is there's a state statute that doesn't allow us to tax folks that live outside of the city for working in the city, and it's because of Jackson County, Missouri. Johnson County's pretty, they want to protect their money, so they make sure that all that money comes back to Johnson County. I'd love to see it change, but I don't think it's going to.
What kind of work, Chad, is being done to change that? Does anybody
No.
say, well, let's take a look and see how we can change that, rather than, well, we can't change that?
There's no, as far as I know, there's no work being done to change that. But the thing I will say is this: when you look at that board and you see issues like bikeways, when you see issues like property code, which has some ancillary effects, potholes, sidewalks, water mains, all those are construction jobs. And I agree with you. Why are we not employing Topekans on those jobs? Because the guy in the neighborhood in Chesney Park, I drove through there the other day looking at the progress on the mural wall, the road that leads out of there, it's a potholed mess. That road is a nightmare. Now, if I live in that neighborhood, why am I not a guy who can get a job with a contractor fixing that road? When the city spends $120 million over 10 years on just one tax or sales tax for road maintenance, why aren't those dollars coming back to our citizens? And we can fix that. There are ways that we can do that, but I would challenge my other 8 members of this body to help me get that done.
It's when it counts, not, that you can. It's when do you do it? It's now, not 5 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Teresa Miller.
Sorry, I'm not very sturdy on my legs right now. My name's Teresa Miller, and I am president of North Topeka West NIA. A lot of my concerns are and I hear Frank, and it hits my heart, because there are people that are down on their last leg. On the surface, they look great, their homes look great, but if you go past that, they are so much struggling. They can't feed their families, they can't pay their houses and stuff, and I understand, and I know that the city really, there's not really a lot of funds like that. And Karen talks about, there's a few places like Let's Help and things like that, or funds that you can put in there. Problem with that is even getting on any type of help from, I call it welfare, they call it families something now. You make too much. If you make, well, use me as an example. I get $1,200 a month. That's to pay all my utilities, and trust you, my 2 utilities from gas and electric the last 2 months have been over $600, just those 2. My house payment's almost $500. I've got medical, I've got water, I've got phone, and I have just the home phone and a generic little phone that I use. I don't have a smartphone or any of that other stuff. But I struggle, but there's people that are worse than me. But what I'm trying to say is, we try to pay our taxes, even though we are struggling. We pay our house or whatever. We do out with a lot of things. But what I hear over in my area is, why don't they fix our roads? Why are we not getting an infrastructure? Why are they going on outskirts of town, fixing everything and making it all pretty? But what happens to the inside of Topeka? Why can't we get our side done? We're getting a little bit done. We're got an empowerment grant funds for sidewalk on Lyman Road, thank goodness, to keep the people out of the street. We're getting that road also worked on to widen it where that area is, which is a problem. But what I hear is water mains. We had some water mains fixed over there, but when they put the soil back, they didn't put it down to the grade it was supposed to be. So now we have this big old flood area. Every time it rains, it doesn't take much to rain. There are Paramore and Tyler, and for years I've told my council people, this needs to be fixed because you've got traffic coming in from one side of the road that has to go and face head on to the traffic coming towards you to get around this big puddle. I mean, it's huge. You can call it a swimming pool if you like. It's falling on deaf ears. Trying to get Tyler widened. We have a bus system that goes on that. That is a very old road, and it's more of a narrow road than some of the other roads in Topeka are. If they meet Kansas sand truck or any other type of truck on that road, it's who's going to get over, and then they're running off the edge of the road, which breaks it down. I've got 2 areas on that road right now that, because it's gravel or sandy soil next to the road, it's washing out. It's starting to wash out underneath the road. So pretty soon that road's going to cave because it's not getting taken care of. I feel there's a lot more things that need to be fixed than starting and redoing some of the things that's been fixed more recent than over in Oakland and North Topeka and areas like that. Because right now, some of the projects that are being done are redoing stuff that has been done since North Topeka had things done on certain roads. So to me, before we pass this budget and some of the projects that we're going to pass, we need to look at that, because there's other areas that haven't been touched in years that need to be touched before we go starting some of this new projects. One other thing, policing. I love my police department. I'm frustrated with them right now. We do need our community officers. It's very, very important. Make sure that we keep those community officers in our areas. That makes people feel safer, because there's times that they've cut the number of community officers down. We need our community officers in the area. The problem is and this is what I ran into for my own personal, is that I don't know if it's the way how they read their codes or how they understand to answer to their codes, because we have a situation that we were told by several officers, and I'm not going to name any officers because I love my officers, that if I went, because I was having people coming on my property all times of night and doing things, if I went and put a nasty, ugly, do not trespass sign, this keep off of property sign on my property, then I could issue these people's tickets for criminal trespassing. Well, now I put those ugly signs on my property, which I don't feel I should have had to. They still won't, they come out and they say, well, we can't issue any tickets. Why not? You told me we could once I put these ugly signs up, and I'm still getting nothing done. They want to talk to these people. These people don't want to talk to them. The last officer that came out that I know of that came out and talked with them was verbally, and the lady came to attack me, and he stopped her. So, you know, I don't know if it's the policies or why, you know, I'm getting told one thing and then when it comes down to it, it doesn't happen. I don't know if, because, well, I don't know what that, I was told, I don't know what those officers told you, so I can't do this. So I'm frustrated about the codes, I guess. I'm not for sure. So that's something maybe our budget needs to look into. Like I say, I love our police officers. I really do. I love our police department. But something needs to be done. I'm not going to take any more of your time because someone else is going to come up and cover some other things for you. But we need to look, we do need to look at the people that are really, really close to losing everything they have to find some type of programs. There used to be some programs years ago that helped people like that, and it was, some of it was forgivable. They got them jobs, they actually paid, I'm prime example. I was on welfare because I filed for a divorce. I had no money. I had lost my job because of my husband, and then he left me. So I went and had to get on welfare. I was on it less than 9 months, maybe. But I went through a program through the city that paid me to go to Clark's Business College. I got a degree, and they set me up with a job. So that helped me. That was from the city. So hopefully we can do something like that again.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, I wanna talk a little bit too about the community policing. They keep telling us that, keep driving by our house 2 or 3 times a day when I got cameras on 24 hours a day, and I can tell when they go by and when they don't go by. As far as this, putting, no trespassing signs on your property, that falls under state law. The police do not have to identify that person. I need to identify that person. They won't do nothing. It's getting to the point, I'm gonna jerk somebody out of their vehicle when they're in my driveway. Because, I mean, I've got them on film. They drive in my driveway all the time. They don't wanna drive into their driveway. They drive through our driveway into their driveway, cause they don't know how to park. Potholes. They're filling the same potholes year after year after year. You go over into northwest Topeka, I'm talking about west of North Tyler. You see potholes out there that's been there for 20 years. You know, what good's it doing just to throw a little bit of asphalt in them and then have to redo them? They was out here on North Taylor, a block from our house, about a month ago and filled a bunch of potholes on North Taylor. All right, they're already out again. They're not doing something right, something, I don't know what it is. They keep wanting to blame it on weather, where the weather isn't all of it. They're not doing it. And when you're, just like, for example, if you're on one street, it seems like they're not filling potholes unless they're called in. If they're on a certain street and they fill 3 or 4 potholes and there's another 10 or 15, 20 of them down the line, why don't they just go right on down the road and fill them all, instead of just doing the ones that are called in? You know, it's not right. We're not supposed to police the streets. The street department's supposed to take care of that. And, you know, if they're gonna put all this money out, let's do it right. And two, I might get in trouble for this, but when the city council tells the city manager to cut $350,000 off the budget, they turn around and hire people for over $200,000, how's he saving $350,000? That, you know, that doesn't look good. So you're not saving money. And that's all I've got to say.
Well, thank you for your comments. And our next speaker, Mark Galbraith.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mark Galbraith. I live at 1230 College, and I wish I was a bit better prepared for this, but I didn't see, I didn't become aware of the public comment opportunity until I saw it in the paper this morning, and that's my mistake, not yours. Somehow I just didn't make myself aware of that. But regardless, I'm happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you as you get ready to prepare the budget. I'm speaking tonight for myself, but also for the Elmhurst Neighborhood Association, and also, okay, great. Also as the chair of the Code Compliance Committee of the Topeka Neighborhood Task Force. And I say I'm not prepared, and what I mean by that primarily is that because I just became aware this morning of this session tonight, I didn't have a chance to actually check with either of those groups to get their okay to say that and speak on their behalf. But I feel certain that they would be okay with that. So that's what I'm doing. And we just have a couple of recommendations for you. We hope that you'll continue to focus on infrastructure, especially in older neighborhoods. I know we've made some progress, but we think there's lots more work to do. We think that's very important. We think it speaks volumes, I think, about the city to residents who currently live here, but also to those who might think about becoming residents of Topeka, you know, that we do maintain our infrastructure. We hope you'll continue to focus on code compliance. We know that you've made some great decisions just recently, and it looks like we're on the path to really making some very meaningful improvements in code compliance, and we appreciate that. We thank you, and we thank all the city staff for that. But we think that's it's a long process. You know, it won't be done overnight, and so we hope you'll, as a council, will stay focused on that until we're certain we have the code compliance operation that we need in the city, until we're certain that it's in place and that it's operating as it should be. We hope you'll continue to support community policing. In Elmhurst, we believe that when community policing is funded and it's working properly, that's probably our best resource in our effort to prevent crime in the neighborhood. So we think it's an important program. Thank you for it, and please continue to fund that. We hope that you'll continue to fund the SORT program. We think that's also proved to be a very good program. We think there's strong evidence of that. We've seen, while Elmhurst is not really eligible for that program, neighborhoods around us are and have been and benefited from that program directly, and we've seen those benefits flow to our neighborhood. So we think it's something very good that's happening in Topeka and ought to be funded on an ongoing basis. We hope you'll also continue the 50-50 sidewalk program. That helps us as a neighborhood to rebuild our infrastructure. In Elmhurst, we've been lucky enough to kind of help our neighbors who apply and qualify for that program to make it just a little bit easier on them. and we've had a lot of success with that. We'd like to continue to do that. We're doing it this year, and so we encourage you to continue to fund that program. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the people who have asked to speak tonight, but if there's anyone in the audience that didn't get a chance to sign up, I don't see any hands or anyone stand. Mr. Campbell?
May I come again?
I think that would be just fine.
During this process of budget hearings, will there be any more hearings during the city council meetings that the public can speak at?
When the budget comes before the city council, yes, there will be time for comment. I don't believe in our actual budget sessions we have public comment. That's why we're doing it now. But before we make any votes on the budget, yes, there would be time for people to come and speak and say what they like or don't like about what we've put together.
Okay. Thing I didn't say before, I realize there are many holes out here to be filled with money. And I realize there are pots of money coming from here and they have to balance. Same as my household. It has to balance. So be careful with it. I don't know where you have a zero tolerance in raises or not. Of the budget, not raises of pay, but of that, keep that in mind. I will second her comment about Tyler and Paramore. That could be a swimming pool at times. I've gone through that intersection. Something needs to be done there with that water. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
I forgot one couple of things. I'll be real quick.
okay.
What I was talking about before, I'm not down on the police department, not doing their job or anything like that, but out in our area, we need them out there more at night because we've been having an awful lot of stuff goes on, and people out in that area, they're not like most of the rest of them. 90% of them won't turn it in or won't call the police because they don't have any faith in it.
Mr. Jackson, I appreciate your comments.
And I think we need more police officers.
Okay.
I think we need to hire some more.
I appreciate that because that directly kind of answers the budget question that you want to see more law enforcement. But if you have any other problems, I would encourage you to talk with Mr. Scott in the back or Chief Miller's even here, because I think some of the concerns you expressed maybe need to go directly to the police.
I mean, I know, money's tight and everything, and, it's like us on Social Security. We get an average of $15 to $25 a month raise every year. That don't amount to nothing. But I think they need more police officers hired, and I think they need more firemen.
Okay, well, thank you. That would conclude our public comments section of our meeting. I would open up if there are any members of the council that have comments or questions for staff. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There was a theme through the last several commenters about poverty issues in the city, and Mr. Hogue, I think, spoke well on a lot of those issues, and I agree individually on pretty much everything that was said. I think we need to make sure that we look at poverty as more of a comprehensive issue, and I think we miss that sometimes. When we talk about bikeways aren't for people who are making $100,000 a year and have $2,000 bikes to ride around. Bikeways are a major source of transportation for the poor people in our community. They're not just a frivolous expense. I think we need to keep things like that in mind. We talk about Mars was mentioned. Mars employs, most of their employees come from here locally. They pay decent wages. They've been a good corporate sponsor or a good corporate partner for this city. And we have to realize that the alternative to what they're doing is them not being here. And all of these things we have to keep in mind when we do that. We talk about projects like downtown, where we're spending $5 million to bring life back to the downtown. That money seems like a lot of money. That money is also going to, for the next 20 years, hopefully stop the bleeding of all of our dining and entertainment money that goes to Lawrence and Manhattan and Kansas City, and that money in turn flows back into our coffers and helps fund things like the grant program that we have, which is somewhat unique to this city, where we actually sit down, and we just did that a couple of weeks ago, sat down for 6 hours with nonprofits in this city, a group of 3 council members, and went through every one of those applications and talked about what they're doing, whether it be youth services or services for the aging or poverty, those kinds of things. All of those are interdependent. They're interdependent on growing our economy, on providing proper infrastructure. All of those things need to be considered together, and I'm a little worried sometimes that we separate these things into unrelated silos and look at them that way. And I think it's important that we address poverty, which I think is a huge issue, particularly since the recession in this city, that we address it in a comprehensive way, and that we take a all hands on deck approach to that. And every issue that we're analyzing, whether it be potholes or downtown development or the zoo or bikeways, all of those things need to be looked at with that perspective in mind as a part of the consideration, not the whole consideration, but as a part of the consideration. And that's something I think we should all keep in mind as we move on with this budget process. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Is there any other comments? I don't see any, so I just want to thank everybody once again for participating in our public comment and for participating in our polling process, which is going to continue. And I encourage anyone that wasn't able to be here to contact their council person or budget and let them know what their priorities are. The next actual budget meeting with the council will be on June 14th at 9 a.m. and that will be at the Law Enforcement Center, and it's open to the public. There is not a place for public comment, but it is open to the public if you want to see how we discuss the things that we're working on. So, yes?
I have a question. What do Oakland and North Topeka do, because we don't have a council person right now? Who do you want us to contact? Is the city? You? Okay.
I have agreed, if I may, Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
I've agreed to take that over, and I will be at your NIA, so you guys will not be left behind.
And the council, the interviews will be beginning soon, and hopefully we'll have that filled so that you'll have that taken care of. And I think that concludes, and I will close the hearing for today. Thank you.